So this is week 8-2, and in it we're going to be defining a surface based on something different from like point data. In this case, it's going to be GIS data. So you can pull GIS data from multiple sources. A lot of the information I've had has come out of Bryan or Brazos County. And so if you click on it, there's certain shape files that you can use and things like that. And like we said, a shape file is like a block with an attribute. One of the best sources as far as finding data in Texas is what's called TNRIS, which is the Texas Natural Resources Information System. And this is a repository for elevation data as well as a bunch of other data that you can pull in. So if you go into it, you can go into the data hub and find this information. And so you can grab different data sets and things like that to help find the data that you need. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to come in and I'm going to show you a little bit of that data, how you can pull it up, and the reason why we're following this process. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of grab the data, and normally these are big bulky files, and we're going to actually pull in the specific parts that we need. And so we're going to do that in Civil 3D in just a moment. So I went to the TNRIS site right here, and I'm going to come in and I want to look at the data. So I'm going to come over here where it says data and maps and go to what their data hub. And this is going to be all the information that is in TNRIS. So hopefully this will come up. Here we go. And what I need is Brazos, misspelled. And let's go Brazos County LiDAR. So what I'm going to get is the Brazos County LiDAR. Now we have two sets, and this is actually the newer set, and I kind of like this, but there's actually a problem with their coordinate system in the data, and so I haven't figured out quite how to fix that one. This one's pretty good though. I'm going to come down and grab the Brazos County LiDAR, so I'm going to click on that. It's going to zoom in on our area. Now what really helps is if we know where we want to look, and so if I come in here and let's look right like here, I can turn on the satellite and then go find my area. And if I'm not mistaken, I gotta look at mine and be sure. Gotta find Tabor Road. So I think this is it, and I think it's up in this area, the area that I need. And so I'd like to figure out which area I want to work with. And if I'm not mistaken, it is this area right here. Oh yeah, here it is. Sorry. And so I can look at what I want to gather for this design. So if I come in here, I can zoom in and find my specific area. So you can find your roads and everything else, and then kind of set everything up. So if I click right here, it's going to give me 3 different types of information in here. So there's a hypsography, a DEM model, which is a little bit bigger, and then this massive point cloud. And we actually don't want that one. That one's really the most refined, but it's also a gig worth of information. We don't really want that. I'm probably going to grab this one as my file. But one of the things though is each of these things, like I said, are different zones, and I'm not quite sure what I want with my zones, and so I need to kind of look at those. And the way you can check is if you look over here, there's a thing called supplemental LiDAR data and supplemental downloads, and there's this one thing called tile index. So that's actually the first thing that I'm going to bring up is going to be the tile index. And so we're going to go in here and download this and bring it up and we've already done the GIS stuff, but bring it up in my file so I can figure out what specific things I need, because it's a ton of data. It's really, it's the whole Brazos County, and you only need a specific portion. So first thing I'm going to do, and the first thing you need to do, is to come in and grab the tiles that you're going to need. And so let me do that in Civil 3D. So I've opened up my file. This is week 8-2 20C exercise 01. And here's my little property. This should look familiar. It's kind of over by y'all's. Slightly different size than what I use a little bit later, but it's good for this example. So I have this property. One of the first things I tend to like to do is I'm going to go ahead and offset this a bit. So I'm going to offset 250 feet because even though I want the information on my property, I actually want to have all the other information around it, especially if I'm tying in roads and everything. So I'm just going to offset this a bit, and I don't think I have. Maybe I do. Let's see. Nope. So I'm going to come in and select this. This is going to be kind of the larger area. Let's call this, I'm going to do a layer called 0- outer boundary, and let's give it a cool little color. Not that maroon isn't cool. I'll give it purple because purple's also cool, unless it's LSU purple. And I'm going to go ahead and select that. All right, so here's my area. So the first thing I need to do is I got to figure out there's actually a bunch of tiles that cover all of the Brazos County. So they ran these scans and they kind of broke them up into certain sizes, and they ran these LiDAR scans. And so they have this entire area, the data in there for the entire area. So I need just a couple specific tiles, and I don't know which one. So I'm going to go find them. So let's go back to old school thing. We're going to go add in our map task pane. So I'm going to come in here and go on, and I'm going to come over here and go connect to data. And now I need to find the shapefile. Well, the shapefile that I'm looking for is in my week 8-2 GIS map data. And all I did was I took the LiDAR availability tile right here, and I went ahead and just put it in our exercise file. So I'll bring that in. I'll go to connect, and I want to add map with query. And then because I had that large shade, I'm going to come over and come here where it says polygon, select, and grab this shape. And so if I hit OK, it's going to come in. And it seems like everything disappears. Remember, it does that because it's holding that data in. And if you look, I have two different zones that basically have the data I need for my surface. And so the one zone is right here. It is 212B2. And then if I come over here, this is 221A1. And so I ought to write those down. So I'm going to write down 212B2 and 221A1. So I'll come down and write that. 221A1, and over here 212B2. So those are the two tiles I'm going to look at, those two little specific pieces of GIS data that I need for my thing. Now that I've done this, I don't need this anymore. So I can come over here and right click and go remove layer. Yeah, I want to remove it. And then I can come back and I can come over here and do, let's see, connect to data, and I can select this and disconnect and then delete it out by just right clicking. So I have those out. So this is my area that I'm going to be working with, and I want to pull in my data for that. All right, so what are we going to do next? Well, we'll talk about it in just a second. So what I want to do now is I want to create a surface based on that GIS file. So I would go back and find the zones that I want. I'd go ahead and pull in that data, and then I've got to extract out the data because it comes in as a zip file, and then I'd be ready to go. So I come in and grab it, extract it, and then I need to create a surface. Well, I'm going to create a surface based on this information right here. So I'm going to create it based on a GIS data surface. And it creates this, and it's a good thing it does, otherwise it'd be pretty confusing. It creates this kind of dialog box that you process through to create your surface. So to create a surface from a GIS file, we're going to need to create it and use the specific one, create surface from GIS. So you got to go to the home ribbon. If you go open up surfaces, about halfway down is create surface from GIS. You need to have your shapefile. You need to have your shapefile extracted that has that elevation in it. If you don't, then go ahead and escape out, get that done, and then go ahead into this command. So we're going to come in, we're using the 2015 LiDAR data, and we're going to come over, and the first window that comes up is kind of the standard one. Remember, we created a surface. Well, that's what this first window is. Create a surface. You tell it that you want to. Give it a name. I'll give it existing ground. You can set your style. You can set your description, all that other stuff. Then you'll come in and click Next. This is where you're going to pull in the data. Now you can link directly to a server if you know what that is, and so you can click on that and it will come in. Or you can come in and use a shapefile or an Oracle file or whatever. No matter what, whenever you decide, if you click shapefile, you need to come in, and because we're using two tiles, we're not going to come in and click this point right here. We're going to actually come in and grab the folder that has all that information in. So whenever we're coming in and dealing with that, we want to come in and click the folder. And so when we come in and click that folder and go find it, then we'll come in, and the next thing we'll do is we're going to click the login. The reason why is this rolls back to some old methods or whatever, but you used to have to directly log into the server, and you still do with some design things like the SDE or Oracle. So whenever you click on that, it'll come in and it will have this option for you to click Next. And so you'll click Next, and it's going to come up and it will list all of the data for your area. And so in our case, we have multiple little zones that we need, and so it's going to come up with each of those zones. And we want to find the one that says 212B2 and one that says 221A1. And we're going to find those and hit that checkbox. What that'll say is we want to grab those two specific tiles to use in our surface. Once we do that, we hit Next, and then it's going to ask us, okay, what area do we want? And we can use a window, we can use a polygon, you can draw a fence around it, you can use a circle. The key thing though is you want to use the crossing window. No matter what, if you pick a polygon or draw a window or whatever, you want to use crossing, because what crossing is going to do is this going to grab all of the surface contours that are in your area or touch the edge of your area, which is what you want. You don't, because otherwise it only grabs the stuff that is fully in your area and you'll lose some data. So we want to use a crossing window. So we'll select crossing. We'll come over and hit Next, and then we get to our last step. And this is really the most important step, because remember, GIS information has attributes in it, for lack of a better term. One of those attributes that we're using in this case is the actual elevation of the contour lines we're trying to access. And so what we need to do is tell Civil 3D to look for that attribute. And so when this comes up, what it's going to say is, okay, here's our file. What piece of information do we want to use? Well, we want to use the elevation attribute in our file to be the elevation attribute in Civil 3D. And so we have to select that. You have to do that for every single tile that you're bringing in. So if we had 4 tiles, we'd have to click that. If we had 2 tiles, we'd have to click that. But we'd come in and we bring in this information. Once we're done, we can hit Finish, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to make the surface. So what we're going to watch right here is we're going to come in. You can start off with exercise 2 or exercise 1. Here's the 2 shape files we're looking for. And we're going to just kind of step this out and get to the point that we have our nice little file. So let's go ahead and go into Civil 3D and work out this exercise. Okay, so here's our file that we had created. I don't need this anymore. The GIS that I'm going to be using here is going to come straight through the surfaces on the home ribbon. So on the home ribbon, I come to surfaces, I open it up, and right here about halfway down is create surface from GIS data. So I'm going to click on that, it opens up, and I'll name my surface, and in this case it is existing ground. Description, so this was 2015 LiDAR, which we're in pretty good shape with our area at 2015 LiDAR because there haven't been a lot of changes. If we were closer downtown, I'd have to figure out some way to get that 2017 or newer data in there. Contours at 2 and 10 are fine, so I'll hit next. Now we need to pick our file. Well, these are shape files that we're going to be accessing, so I'll pick that. And then right here, I could pick an individual tile if I only needed one, but I actually need a bunch. So I'm going to come in here and click the folder, and then I'm going to go find my data. And so if I go to GIS data, and here's where I extracted that file. And that's my folder, so I'm going to hit open, and then I'll hit login, and it's going to list all of these different ones. So here's 221A1, 221A2, 212B2, all these. So these are the different files, and I pulled this out of a larger list because otherwise you'd have like 50 of these. So I figured it was easy to grab these. So I'm going to go and grab the ones I want. So that was 221A1, so I'm going to check that box. And then 212B2, so I'm going to check that box. The rest of these I don't need because it doesn't cover my area. So then I go next. And now it says, okay, what's your area of interest? Well, I'm going to use a polygon because we made one. I'm going to use that. But I want to make sure that I set this to crossing. So make sure that you set that to crossing. You can do it either before or after you select it. So I set it at crossing. Now I'm going to come up here and click the little green button to select the polygon in my drawing. So I'm going to click it. I want to use one that I already have. So I'm going to hit select and click that. And then I pick my closed polygon. Everything seems okay. So I'll go next. And because we had two tiles, we have two pieces of information we have to tell it. First one is the elevation for the first property, and then the elevation, I just click the drop down here, elevation for the second property. Now that it knows it, now that it knows that little attribute piece of data and how it's applied, I can come in and hit finish. It's going to come up, and I want to show you this. It came up with this warning. Why did it come up with this warning? Well, because these are duplicate break lines. And remember, I said this sometimes happens when you pull in data. You sometimes have overlapping lines or things like that. And it's like, hey, I already have this data. So it decides, hey, if it's really close, I'm not going to add it in. So it gives you these warnings and these error warnings, but it creates your surface, and that's okay. So what I have now is my nice little surface, and what you can see, there's a road that goes up to the northeast, and that's what this is. And I've got a hill. We talked about that. We've got this area right here, which is actually what they've done is they've just pushed up the dirt in this area, so water coming down the hill gets trapped, and then they have a cattle pond. So that's what that is. This is part of a cattle pond over on this side, and things like that that I can see with my design. So once I pull in that surface, I can come in and set everything up. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go through those steps again. So let me step backwards. Got to go through a few zooms, everything like that, and let's go once more. So I'm going to come in, create surface from GIS data, give it a name. In my case, it's existing ground. Description, I gave it 2015 because that was the LiDAR data. Contours were fine. I hit next. I went for a shape file, and then I found the folder that it was in. And the folder also happens to have this zip folder in it, but don't worry about that. I picked my folder, which was this one right here. I hit open. And then nothing, you notice I can't move forward. You have to click the login button. Once you do, it lists your things. I picked the ones I needed, which was A1 and B2 right here. Then I went ahead and hit next. I picked my polygon. So I hit select and then pick that. And I made sure it was crossing. Very important there, make sure that's crossing. Hit next. And then I tell the GIS field, which happens to be elevation, to apply to the elevation in Civil 3D. So I want this piece of data to go to elevation. We have 2 tiles, so I want this piece of data to go to elevation. Once I'm done, I hit finish. It comes in, gives me a few errors, and I've got my surface. So real quickly, I can get my surface based on that. So go ahead and try that out. You definitely want to be able to do this. We're going to be doing this a completely different example in class, so we want to be able to have this down because you're going to need it, especially when you get to your project. So work on this and try it out with the example we provided. So in conclusion, what we did was first we had to find the data. In our case, we went to the Texas Natural Resource webpage, TNRIS, and we found the data, but there's a lot of data there. So what we did was we went in and used the LiDAR availability GIS file to first find the tiles that we needed of the LiDAR data. And so we went in, we used our traditional bring in the GIS, we used our cross-section to pull in the data we wanted, and we ended up with these 2 tiles. Then we went in and downloaded the TNRIS files that had that data in it. In our case, there were 3 different types. There was DEM, there was actually the full LiDAR scan, and then there was hypsography data, and that's the one we picked. It's a little bit smaller data set. Then we went ahead and in Civil 3D, we used Create Surface using GIS, and we brought in the stepped through it and brought in the GIS surface into Civil 3D. So the process isn't that hard. You just have to make sure you jump through the correct hoops, you check the right boxes, you identify what the data is in your GIS and how it relates to your Civil 3D objects, specifically the elevation, and then you get your surface. So go ahead and try this out. This is kind of important that you get this kind of laid out the way that you need to, and we'll be talking about it again in our face-to-face class.